All right, guys, so let's get started. So first of all, I'll just share my screen. Already it's visible. Great. So what we are going to do in this particular workshop is, obviously you all know this, we are going to develop a chatbot for research papers with the help of ChatGPT, right? But first of all, I already know that there are some people who already are aware about Spartificial, and there are quite some people as well who are not aware about us, right? And also they won't be aware about me as well, right? So first of all, I'll just introduce to you all myself. So I am Rohan, okay, and I am working with Spartificial since past 1 year with respect to machine learning, engineering, as well as the trainer and a mentor. All right, so that's what I'm doing at Spartificial, and I'll talk much more about what we do at Spartificial because that's again one of the part of this workshop. So I'll include it in that particular content. All right. So the main idea over here is to develop this chatbot for research papers using ChatGPT. All right. And the whole workflow of this workshop is going to be like this. Okay. First of all, it would be about depending on how much amount of conversations that we are having, how much amount of discussions that we are having throughout the session. The session might vary between anywhere about about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, but let's see. But yeah, that's the typical timing of this particular workshop already. And the things that we are going to cover, right? The first thing is that understanding the need of such chatbots, right? Why do we need to create this kind of chatbots for research papers? That's the first thing we'll be looking onto. After that, what is the motivation behind this workshop? We'll be talking about that. And then we'll be mentioning something about Spartificial because that goes along the flow. And then why to create a separate chatbot like this and not use ChatGPT directly? Okay, we'll also be having a discussion with respect to that. And then the thing that we are using right now, okay, is called generative AI. Okay, so what is the difference between AI, generative AI, and LLMs? What are LLMs? All of these things will be discussed. And there will be a step-by-step guide for building a custom chatbot. Okay, everything will be mentioned in the step-by-step manner over here, right? And based on the step-by-step understanding, once we are understanding completely that what are the things that we are going to look into, we are going to actually go ahead and do the implementation part and build a custom chatbot using guidance and Llama Index. Don't worry, I'll be talking about this, but yeah, that's something that we are going to use to create this. All right. And after that, we'll be talking about the conclusions and what next you can do, and finally the Q&A time. But this Q&A time is not compulsory that we take at the end only. I just want that whenever I'm explaining throughout this workshop, guys, if we are not even able to understand a single thing, feel free to at least raise your hand because I won't be having any kind of view on the chat, okay, particularly. But please raise your hand so that I'm getting this kind of alert that someone is having a doubt. And feel free to raise your hand anytime. And once I'm done explaining a particular concept, I'll take your doubts. Okay, so that's the kind of procedure that we are going to follow. All right, guys. So first of all, can I do that? How many people over here are not knowing Python? Please raise your hand, guys. The people who are not knowing Python. Yeah. Okay. There are only 3 people who are not knowing Python. Everyone else is comfortable with Python, right? That means. All right. All right, guys. So even though we are having a very less number of people who are not really well versed with Python, so I don't think it would be a problem. But even for those who are not really good with Python, or even they don't even know, what really happens in Python, I'll make sure to explain this whole content in a way that you will be able to understand it. Okay. So especially for you guys, okay, when the implementation part will start, please, if there is anything, you can always ask me. Okay, if there's something which you don't understand. Right. Okay, Fuzail, you are also over here. Great. All right. All right, guys. So yes, let's get started. Okay. So understand the need for such chatbots. So what is the real requirement of using building this kind of custom chatbot? What's the kind of thing? Can anyone tell me what kind of ideas can you have? What is the requirement of this kind of chatbot? What are things can we do if we are able to generate a chatbot with respect to research papers with the help of ChatGPT? Can anyone come up with some kind of applications? You can maybe raise your hand or maybe unmute yourself and speak if no one is speaking. Any kind of a single, it could be as simple as it could be. Get a summary or research paper. Okay, yes, that's one of the thing. Any other applications, guys, that you can think of? All right, no problem. So see, what all things we can do. That's the first part that we are covering. Okay. So when we are building our custom chatbots, okay, we are having this liberty. Okay, first of all, those who are really into the research papers, okay, they are very much into the research papers. They must know that there is something which is called as literature review. Okay, so what we do in this particular process, guys, is that we are having about 15-20 research papers that we need to study about, and then write a review based on what are the kind of works that people have already done based on this particular thing that you are trying to research on, right? So for that literature review, okay, you literally have to browse through this kind of whole research papers, and even after that, obviously there are some kind of techniques that you use. For example, you use something called as you search in this document by using Control F. Okay, you press Control F and search the specific thing that you are looking for, and it's going to give you some relative information with respect to the word, right? But now that's again the outdated technique, because of we are having this kind of ability now to build chatbots that are customized according to our particular needs. All right, so now over here what we can do is, throughout the whole uh, research paper, okay, not just one, we can have multiple research papers. Okay, and then you can literally ask any kind of question to your chatbot, and it's going to give you answer with respect to that. Now that's again only one use case, right? What could be some other use cases, right? So other use cases that we can do with respect to develop a chatbot is matchmaking, right? Almost, I guess, some, at least not all, then some of you might have used some kind of matchmaking applications, right? So it's very similar to that. What happens over here is, let's say that we are creating a whole system over here for this chatbot, and we are having data of the users who are asking questions through this chatbot, right? So what specific type of questions they are looking for, what type of papers they are looking for. Okay, for example, let's say I am looking for papers on, let's say, James Webb Space Telescope, and you might be looking for, let's say, Hubble Space Telescope or some other space telescope you might be looking after, right? So now what's going to happen is, based on this recommendation system that we'll be building through the help of this chatbot, our profiles will be matching together, right? So what can happen with respect to this? We can have a collaboration together and work on something that could be pretty fancy, right? Which together, which I am just doing based on James Webb, you are doing based on Hubble Space Telescope. We can come together and do some great work together, right? So this kind of collaborative works will increase, right? Apart from that, other things that you can do over here, again with respect to matchmaking itself, okay, you might get recommendations with respect to what kind of paper do you need to read next. Just like how we have YouTube, right? How we have Netflix, how it gives us recommendations after every videos. Just like this, based on what you are asking to the chatbots, it's going to give you, okay, if you have read this paper, maybe you might like this particular paper, so go for it. So all these kind of applications we can do with the help of this kind of chatbots, right? So that's exactly that's the need of these chatbots, that if we do not have this kind of chatbots, it becomes a bit difficult to do it. But because of this thing, okay, it becomes a bit more easier to implement this kind of things, right? So these are all the kind of summary of what I have just explained. Okay, all of these materials will be given to you. And by the way, you don't have to code anything along with me. You just enjoy. Okay, just relax and enjoy this process of how these things are working. But obviously, if someone is very fast typer or something, then maybe if you want, you can do it. But it's not really required. Okay, because this whole material will be given to you on that specific WhatsApp group. All right, that's how I guess we'll be sharing this kind of content with you, or else we'll be uploading this recording on YouTube, and over there we'll be uploading this content over there, so you can access it from there itself, right? But yeah, this is the kind of things that that's the reason why we need this kind of things, right? Any kind of doubts in understanding this? These are again very few things that that comes into my mind, and that's what I mentioned it over here. There could be much more than this if you just keep on thinking about it, right? But yeah, these are the kind of stuff that we can do. All right. Now, what is the motivation of this workshop? Right. What is the motivation behind this workshop? So over here, we'll be keeping this stuff to an introductory level. Okay, maybe it can go to the intermediate level as well, depending on what is the kind of knowledge you're having right now. It might get a bit overwhelming for you, but I'll make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, but for that, you also have to make sure that if you're having any kind of doubts, you let me know without any kind of hesitation. All right. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do over here is that we create a chatbot where it takes one research paper, right? And from that research paper, we can ask as many questions as we want. That's the end goal. How are you going to do this? With the help of guidance, with the help of Llama Index. Okay, so these are the two main things we'll be using in order to complete this particular task. Okay, and then, after developing this kind of chatbots, currently we are doing it on VS Code Jupyter notebook, right? VS Code Python notebook, right? So how to take it one step further? Like, I talked about all the kind of different applications that we can make. So if you are really interested after the end of this particular workshop, then we are going to give you a form to fill, that whether or not you will be interested to like enroll yourself into a training program where we are teaching you everything from scratch till the level of production. Okay, so that's the kind of idea that we are having over here. I guess there is something wrong. Let me check. Am I audible, guys?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
you are audible.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so that's the main motive. Okay, that we want to really understand that after this workshop is over, how many of you are really getting excited to learn more about it from scratch till the level of production. Okay, where all the people, whatever you have developed, can use it, or even if not everyone, at least you will be making something that is really very cool, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we'll be talking about, and more of these details will come as we go ahead. All right. Now, a very quick introduction about Spartificial. So what we do at Spartificial is something that's exactly what I'm going to share right now. So I just click on this link. Here is our website, Spartificial. What we do is, just like I told you about the training programs, right? Over here, currently we are having two of the training programs. Like, one is ongoing batch on astronomical data science. I'll be talking about what do we teach over here in at the end of this workshop. But yeah, we provide this kind of training programs where we believe in this project based learning, where you don't know anything about a particular concept, but now based on solving one project, you get quite some knowledge with respect to that, right? So that's the kind of stuff we believe in, and that's why all the training programs that we launch at Spartificial are based on this approach of project-based learning. All right, I'll be talking much more about it as we go ahead, but it's not that. Okay, we also focus on the workshops, just like you're attending it one right now, right? So we also conduct this kind of workshops. Along with that, we also provide this kind of guided projects. But let's say you are having some kind of projects that you're working on, let's say on data science, machine learning, right? With respect to this kind of field. And if you are requiring some kind of guidance with respect to that, we also provide that facility with respect to this guided projects, right? And we keep on having different events and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically about us. I'll be talking more about this programs as we go at the end of this workshop, so that you understand what is the whole motivation behind this workshop. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's go. So the question is why we cannot use ChatGPT directly, right? What is the issue that we may face? So let's say that ChatGPT is having all the kind of data with respect to uh, till 2021 September, right? It doesn't have any kind of data with it after that. So it's not trained after the September 2021 data. So now if you're having some kind of research papers that are posted after 2021, right? Obviously there are hundreds of papers that has been posted, right? So how will you use those kind of papers and make this kind of chatbot and have interaction with respect to that? Right? That's the reason why we cannot use ChatGPT directly, but still we'll be using a model based on which this ChatGPT has been trained on. Right? We'll be using that model to create a chatbot for our own custom data set. And that custom data set is nothing but a research paper in our particular use case. All right. And actually, as I mentioned, this ChatGPT, okay, this ChatGPT is actually an application. It's an application of something which we call as a large language model. And these large language models are something which we call as GPT 3.5 Turbo, GPT-4. This kind of things you must have seen on your chat GPT if you have ever used it, right? You must have seen on the top of it that you are using the free version, that is GPT 3.5 Turbo. Then there is a paid version, that is GPT-4. So all of these kind of models are used in the application called as chat GPT. All right. So what we are going to do in this whole workshop is to use this kind of large language model to train it on our data set, that is the research paper, and create a chatbot just like how ChatGPT works. That's the kind of thing that we are going to do. All right, guys. Any kind of doubt so far? Anything that you think that it's not clear, you can let me know.
No.
All right, guys. If it's crystal clear, let's get started. So now comes the difference between AI, generative AI, and what are LLMs in general, right? I've already given you a very brief introduction with respect to that, but still, let's say someone over here who is completely new in the field of artificial intelligence. Okay, AI stands for artificial intelligence. Okay, so AI is a kind of a technology that is basically making machines smart. Okay, we are giving machines the ability to take some decisions, do some kind of predictions, and just learn based on any kind of mistakes that they are doing. Right? So that's what AI is all about. Now there is a whole new branch inside this AI called generative AI. What is generative AI? Just like its name, okay, generative AI means your AI is trying to generate some stuff. Okay, this stuff could be writing stories, drawing pictures, creating videos, composing music. And you must have heard about this kind of if you are using Instagram by any chance, most of you must be using it, right? You might have heard this kind of you must have seen this kind of reel where there is a mixture of 5 different singers. Arijit Singh is there, then we are having Sonu Nigam, and all these kind of singers are there, right? Who have not actually sung a particular song, but still we are able to hear them. Why? Because this is the AI which is able to generate this kind of voice. Okay, it's not always AI, but yeah, there are a lot of videos like this which are completely based on AI. Okay. With the help of this AI, you are able to train a model on a voice of someone, and now that voice is actually been used to sing a particular song which that person has never sung, right? So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's going on. Okay, that's what is generative AI. You are trying to generate some kind of stuff, and that's what makes it the most interesting, right? So now, what is the meaning of large language models? As I mentioned, large language models are a model. The example is this GPT, the generative pre-trained transformer. What is this generative pre-trained transformer? It's basically a neural network. Okay. There is a network which is there, which we call as basically transformers. Okay, and it's able to generate something. That's why this name GPT is given to us. But what actually is it? Right? It is a large language model. So in this large language model, why do we call it as a large language model? First of all, because it's been trained on a very huge data set. Okay, we are having some kind of stuff from online, some from books, everything that is available online. Okay, everything has been gathered to train this kind of models to learn different stuff, different patterns, and then that's the reason why ChatGPT is able to give you this kind of cool results, right? Because it has been trained on a very huge data sets, right? And that's why it is called large language model. It has been trained on a very huge scale. Okay, now what we are trying to do over here in this particular workshop, what we are trying to do, we are trying to leverage whatever they have learned, like this kind of things are been generated by Facebook, right? And there is also Google Bard. It's been done with respect to Google. So all these kind of tech giants, all of these people are building this kind of large language models. What we are doing over here is we are taking this advantage that, okay, you have trained something that is really very big. Okay. Now we are going to take that model, feed my data on top of it. I'm going to make it learn that extra data. And then I'm going to ask some questions based on that particular data. Right? It's not always about research papers. It could be literally any kind of document that you can think of. Right? But now, because we are Spartificial, right, we love to combine, like, this space kind of stuff with the artificial intelligence. That's the reason why we have, like, specifically kept this particular topic for this workshop. Right? But it could be literally any kind of data that your ChatGPT might not know in the backend, but you can train it. Okay, you can train it and make it learn it and create a chatbot out of it. Right? So that's the stuff that we are going to build. Right? And this is basically depicting that, first of all, we are having AI. Under AI, we are having some technique called as machine learning. Inside machine learning, we are having deep learning, and inside this deep learning, we are having this generative AI. Okay, generative AI is a subset of these things. You don't really need to understand all of these things. You just know this thing, that this is just, in all of these things, we are trying to, in one or the other way. In machine learning, we typically use some kind of algorithms, which helps machines become smart. In deep learning, it basically uses frameworks like what goes on in our brain. Okay, we are having neurons, right? So that's why it is called neural networks. In deep learning, we are exposed to the concepts of neural networks. Right? So based on this neural network, there is a specific type called transformers. And in a generative AI, we have developed a model called generative pre-trained transformer. Right? That's the GPT. So that's how this kind of diagram can be helpful to understand all of this kind of thing. All right. All right, guys. Now we are on the particular step where we are starting the step-by-step guidance to build a custom chatbot with the help of RAG application. I'll tell you what this RAG application actually means once we are done understanding this whole process. Okay. So first of all, I'll show you what is the kind of structure that I'm having of my directory of this particular project. So this is the kind of stuff we are having. We are having, like, this is one particular folder over here. In this folder, we are having another folder called as research papers. This is a directory called as research papers, inside which I have given this one research paper, and that is about, like, fundamental study on optical performance of low melting point metal mirrors for space telescopes. So I'll just give you a very brief idea about this particular research paper. Over here, researchers are trying to see that based on the low melting point metal mirrors, is it really good for space telescopes, and all these kind of things have been discussed in this particular paper. What are the kind of techniques that they've used? What are the kind of results they have got? All these kind of things is what we are not aware about as of now. We will be aware about it as we will try to ask some kind of questions with respect to this data, right? But this is the actual PDF from which we are going to get our data. Right. So if I can scroll it down and show you. So yeah, that's pretty long document, right? And now it's not that you just use only one document. You can have as many as research papers as you want over here. Okay, I have just taken for an example only one research paper over here. Okay, so what is the structure? Inside my main folder, I am having another folder called as research papers, inside which I am having only one paper. All right. Then apart from that is this particular notebook that you are seeing right now, the one that I'm using. This image and image series of no use. Okay, it's just that some of the images that I have uploaded over here, that's why it's used over here. Some of the images that you can see might be coming from this particular image. But the important part is this .env. I hope you can see this .env. I'm not going to touch it. There is a specific reason behind that. It's containing some secretive information which cannot be exposed to anyone, okay, except myself. So yeah, there is something inside that .env, but yeah, I hope you got the overall structure of how this kind of project has been created in my system. All right. Now you will understand everything that what is the reason that we have created this kind of structure. Okay. I'll just hide it in a while and start with the process. Okay. So now we are about to understand everything step by step. If you are able to understand this process, guys, it's going to be very easy to understand the implementation part for the people who are really good with Python, or like, so with Python as well. Okay. But even for the people who are not really good with Python, you will still be able to make a lot of amount of sense of what I'll be explaining in the implementation part. But for that, you will have to pay 100% of your attention over here. Because even if you miss a single bit, everything will be like, you will be just confused what's really happening. Okay. All right, guys. I'll just cross check the chat if you're having any doubts. Okay. We're not having any doubts. So let's go. Okay. So the first step is we need a way to provide our large language model. The one that we are going to use is the freely available one from the OpenAI, that is the GPT 3.5 Turbo. Okay, so we need a way to provide that large language model the data it has never seen before. And for our case, I told you that's the research paper that I had opened, right? So that's the research paper that we are having. So what is that way? We are going to identify that way. Okay. After that, once we are aware that, okay, that's how we can load the data and expose that kind of stuff to LLM, then we can talk about some later steps. So how are we going to do this? Right? What exact steps we are going to do? So this particular flow chart is explaining 50% of the things. Okay. What is this basically saying? That how you are going to create a knowledge base for your large language model, for it to learn from something. How are you going to create that that stuff from which your a large language model will learn? So that's this particular process. So what is this process? First of all, we are having the data sources, right? This is the data source from which we are going to load the documents. Any documents present inside this particular folder will be called as a document. Okay. Now, how are you going to get this document? How are you going to get this access to these documents? With a functionality called load. There is a functionality that we'll be using in the implementation part called load. So with that load functionality, we will be able to upload this kind of research paper into our notebook. Okay. Now I told you it's a multi-page particular PDF, right? It was having multiple pages. So what we do after that is we cut that document into different parts, and the way that we do it is it depends on, like, what kind of text splitter you are using. Let's say that you are using, for example, character text splitter. I won't go into a lot more details, but let's say we are going in using a character text splitter. That's what we'll be using in this particular workshop. So what it basically does is that it took the document, then based on the chunk size, how much amount of chunk size, this chunk is nothing but, like, how much amount of the other documents that I'll be creating from this original document, how many splits I'll be making with respect to this document, and in its split, how much amount of characters should be there. How much amount of character means each and every letter. Okay. Each and every letter basically means character, right? So that length of this character will define the chunk size. This is again when we are using the character text splitter. Okay. And because we are going to use it, I'm explaining that particular part. Again, there is a whole lot of things that are going on in the backend. And right now I cannot explain that because of the time constraint. But that's exactly, like, what we are looking for. If you are really getting interested to know about, like, what are the kind of backend stuff that's going on. Okay. That's the real fun. That's where the real fun is. Right. But anyway, coming to this particular topic, what we have done so far, from the folder, we have loaded the documents into our notebook. We have splitted the documents into multiple different documents. Now, in these documents, we also call them nodes. Okay. Now, from this particular documents, what we are having? We are having certain number of characters in each file. Okay. It might be varying as well because of some kind of thing that is going on in the backend. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff we have done so far. We are having now, we have split this particular document into multiple documents. Now, because this kind of documents are having the data in format of strings, right? String basically means this kind of text data, right? So just think about it. Can machine understand this kind of thing? Can machine understand anything apart from numeric data?
No.
We need to do some kind of conversion process, right? We need to do some kind of conversion process, and that conversion process that we are using over here is called the embeddings. Anyone over here is aware about the embedding techniques? Okay. Tokenizing is not same as the text splitter. Okay, tokenizing is splitting word by word. If you are having a sentence, then you are splitting the sentence in a word by word way. What we are doing over here is we are splitting character by character, and then we are clubbing them together like that. So tokenizing is a different concept. But yeah, coming on to how we can convert our text data into some kind of a numerical representation. That's what this embedding model does. Okay, there are multiple different ways of doing the embeddings. Okay, we are having the transformer way of creating the embeddings. We are having word to vec and all these kind of examples are there. You choose the one which is suitable for you, right? But what we are going to focus on is, just a second. What we are going to focus on is we are going to do this internally. Okay, you won't be exposed to what has really been happening over here. We'll be just doing it externally so that you don't have to worry about what has happened in the backend. But at a higher level, what you can understand is we are trying to convert our text data into its numeric representation. And these representations are really very special. Okay, some similar words are represented in the very similar type of numeric data. So if there are two synonyms, okay, take any kind of synonyms. Okay, now this synonyms, the numerical representation, the numerical vectors that we'll be getting, both will be pretty much similar. Again, it depends, what kind of embedding model you are using. But yeah, these are the kind of ideas. There are different embedding techniques through which we are able to convert our text data into a numeric data. Okay, so let's just assume some kind of technique was implemented over here, and we have converted our data into a numeric vector. Right. So once we have done this, what we do after this? We are going to build something called as indexes using a vector database. So what happens over here in vector database? This is the final step. Okay, this is the final step of passing our data from the data sources into the knowledge base. This knowledge base is something which your large language model will have an access to. Okay, so this is the last step for the loading part of the data to the knowledge base. Okay, so what's happening over here? We are having that numerical vectors, which is nothing but the embeddings of the respective text data. Right. So what happens over here is based on some kind of similarities. Based on some kind of similarities, it's going to create some kind of rankings, and these rankings are going to arrange your I'll tell you much more in detail in the second part. Only then you will be able to understand this particular part. So let's jump from this particular part directly to this thing. Okay, only then you will be able to understand more about vector database. So what is happening now? Let's just say that we are having a knowledge over here which is now exposed to your large language model. Okay, so what's going to happen? So obviously we are going to ask some kind of question to this large language model. That is nothing but query. Okay. We are asking some kind of question. We are asking some kind of question to your large language model. Okay. Again, because we are typing something in text format, it again needs to be converted into a numerical representation. So the model that you have used over here is the same model that we are using over here. Now what's going to happen? You are having the data over here from this embeddings. You are having the data from this embeddings, right? It's not just that you are having only the embeddings. You are also having access to the document splitters, like all the kind of chunks that you have created. You are also having access to that, Right? All the multiple things are stored in this particular database. But what we are interested to know about is from this particular embeddings, we are having some kind of data, right? Now, from this user input, from this user question that it's trying to ask to your large language model, what it will do, if it's asking some kind of questions, so based on what kind of words it has used, it will again convert it into its numerical format, and then try to search which out of the uh, present uh, embeddings we got over here are matching with the embeddings that we are getting from the user. I hope the idea is getting clear. Over here, we stored all the embeddings over here to the vector database, right? Over here, what's happening? User is trying to ask a question to this large language model. But what's the process? How is it receiving? Is it directly receiving it? No, there is some kind of a process that's happening. What is the process? The query again is in the format of text. Okay, query is nothing but a question. It's because it's in the format of text, we are converting it to the numerical format. Now, I told you, right, based on some synonyms, it creates a very similar type of vectors. So let's say in your question, you are having some kind of things that are very similar to the things present in the vector database. So what's going to happen? It's going to match your embedding models to that particular embeddings. Whatever you've given from this particular embedding, that's going to be matched based on the similarity, how much similar this kind of vectors are basically. Once they are matched, you tell how much amount of this kind of stuff to give as an output, how many chunks. From this document we created multiple chunks, right? So this multiple chunks will be given over here as an output. How many outputs do you need? Let's say for example 3 in this particular use case. Why 3? How are we getting this particular 3, not any 3? Let's say in this particular document we created 8 different chunks. Then how would we know out of this 8 which 3 will come over here? So there is some kind of things happening in the backend. Based on some kind of technique, it's trying to match this kind of vectors that were present because of the data that we have passed into the vector database. And if our query is matching with them, so out of 8 chunks, which chunk is having more similarity? So top n results are retrieved from this particular database based on this similarity. Okay, I hope the process is getting clear a bit. So what's going to happen based on this matching? We are going to get, let's say, one doc out of 8, one of the document is matching the most with this particular embedding that we got. Then after that, there is a second document that is matching the most. Then there is some, let's say, 5th chunk which is matching the most. So we got this kind of 3 outputs. Is it compulsory that we get only 3? No, we can get as many outputs that we want, right? Just to see how many similar outputs we are getting, right? Any doubts, guys? Okay, I guess, can you repeat? Okay, sure. Which part do you want me to repeat? Saptrishi. Anyone else over here who did not understand this process? Because this process is the most important one. That's where every problem will lie. If you don't understand this step, everything else after this work, like after this particular time, is just going to be like, waste of time. You won't be able to understand anything. So anyone over here who has not understood this process of what's really happening till this particular step, what we have done so far, we got the data sources. From that, we got the original documents from which we have to pass the data to this vector database. So from these documents, we are creating different chunks. From these chunks, because it's in a text data, we are converting it to a numerical data with some kind of method. Now that numerical method data, numerical vectors are stored in the vector database. Right? That step is done. Now what is the next step? Next step is when you are going to ask some question to your research paper, right? You will be generating some kind of text. So based on what kind of text you have generated so far, once you hit that enter button, what's going to happen? That text will be converted again into a numerical format. Now, based on certain kind of words that I have used that are present already in the research paper, for example, the research paper that we are using over here, is having this particular name, right? What is the name? Something low melting point, right? So if I'm giving some kind of input to my this large language model with respect to this kind of words, then what's going to happen? The thing that's really going to happen over here is, based on this low melting point that I've given, my this vector database already has this kind of information because it's coming from this documents, right? It is already stored over here. So now, because I have mentioned this low melting point, it's going to convert it into its numerical vectors, and then it's going to match which one is corresponding to that, like, low melting point. If it's matching, which one is matching the most out of all the vectors that we are having in this vector database, which one is matching the most? The one which is matching the most is the best match. Okay. After that, we might have some two or three different results, or even four, five. You will get almost all the kind of similarity searches that are present. It will be basic. It basically works on the principles of rankings. Okay. So based on the ranks that we are giving to all the kind of chunks that we are having, you can retrieve all the kind of respective chunks. You can retrieve all the 8 chunks if you want. Okay. But it's of no use, right? Only the top most kind of part will have the information which we want to ask our large language model, the GPT model, to learn. Right? I just want to pass this much amount of information to learn. Out of eight, I know in these 3 documents, I might have my answer. In these 3 chunks, I might have my answer. So instead of passing all the 8 chunks to this LLM, we are passing these 3 chunks. And these 3 are the ones which match the most with the query. Okay. I hope now the steps are clear. Any doubts, guys? Were you able to understand this?
Yes, sir.
What about other guys? Please raise your hand, the people who understood this whole method. Perfect. Amazing. Amazing. Thanks, guys, for responding. Now, Now, the process is clear so far that how large language model is getting a new data from this vector database that we have shared, right? That we have created, I mean. Now, how is it going to create a response? Large language model is already trained by this huge guys, right? Facebook, Google, and all that kind of stuff, right? So we don't need to really train it on anything else. It's already trained. We are just feeding some extra data to it and telling it by just learn this, right? Now, what happens after this? Let's say that large language model is having this kind of data as well. So till now, it was not exposed to this kind of data, right? Because it was trained till the data of September 2021. But after that, this particular research paper is of 2023, basically. All right. So what's going to happen? It's taking a data which it was never exposed to in a very beautiful way. Okay. All of this process, guys, trust me, this is really very beautiful. If you go into the depth of it, it's just mind-boggling. Okay. But let's say that these are the kind of parts that has gone and reached to the LLM. How does this query that we have passed, it answers? I told you, right? It already knows how to answer once you give the data, if it is exposed to a particular data, right? So the process of getting the outputs will just be same as you see in the chat GPT. You don't have to do anything else after this. LLM is going to take care about it automatically. The only thing we have to take care about is how do we pass our data to our LLM. Once it's passed, it's going to take care about it automatically and generate the specific response. Okay. Now, when this kind of response are generated, there is one problem that we may face. Okay. And that problem is that we might not get output that we desire. It is giving us some kind of outputs that are unnecessary, okay, which we don't really want our users to see. Right now, it's just like, I'm developing this kind of thing. I get some kind of outputs, but now what I want to do is I want to create the outputs that will be meaningful for my user. That's the kind of task that I want to do. So how can I do it? Does anyone know over here? What is the specific term that we use to, yeah,
Fine tuning.
fine tuning? How do we do the fine tuning? by giving certain kind of prompts, we are giving a guidance to LLM that you need to give output in a very specific manner. And these things, the queries and all these things that we generate, okay, any kind of questions that we are passing to the LLM, it's nothing but a prompt. Okay. So now this LLM should have a specific way of, first of all, what is prompt? I hope that is clear to everyone. Prompt is nothing but we are giving some kind of information to this LLM that if you are generating this kind of response, you need to make sure that this kind of stuff is not present, this kind of stuff is present. It should be in a point wise manner. It should specifically focus on generating summary. All this kind of information you need to give to the LLM depending on what kind of use case you are trying to work on. Okay, so all of these things, how do we do this? I'll be giving you a live example when we will begin the coding part. But yeah, that's the kind of idea. We try to give some kind of guidance to the LLM in the format of prompts. Okay, you will be understanding it once we look into the example. But now with respect to that, we can control the response that LLM is giving. First of all, it was giving some kind of outputs that I was not satisfied with it. Okay, as a developer, I want that my people who will be using this particular application gets a very satisfactory response. Okay, so for that, I have used some kind of prompts. I have designed some kind of prompts. I have structured it in a way that my response is optimal, right? So that one extra step that we have to do, and that's what we call as prompt engineering. Okay, I guess you might have heard this word nowadays because it's one of the most popular words that you might come across. But yeah, that's something that we'll be doing. Okay, very on a very basic level. But yeah, that's what we'll be doing in this particular session as well. All right. So yes, now this whole process, the thing that we have done, starting from from getting the data sources to pass our data to the vector database in a very good way, and from that vector database we we retrieve this kind of data, pass it to the LLM and generate response. This kind of process, the things that we're using right now, is called the RAG. RAG means what? Retrieval Augmented Generation. We are trying to retrieve the data, augment it, and generate some kind of thing out of it. So this kind of system, this whole system, the application that we are building, okay, of this LLM is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Okay. And the Google form that I've created for you guys to give us a response over there also I've given this kind of title, so just don't get confused. This process that we have learned is called RAG application. Okay, so yeah, that's the title that I've given in the Google form that I will share with you all at the end of this particular session, so don't get confused. All right, so yes guys, that's the whole process, and now we are about to start the code implementation. Is there anyone over here, even if there is a single person that wants me to repeat this particular thing, I'll do it. Is there anyone over here like that who doesn't understand?
Sir, can you please repeat once again, like a
Which,
summary?
yeah, sure. Anything specific or everything with respect to this particular thing, the RAG application?
The vector DB one.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, very enough. I want to know about that retrieval
Mhm.
augmented
Yeah,
stuff. How
it's
exactly it
basically,
is? Yeah.
yeah.
So can you please elaborate about it? That instruction tune part.
I'll just go over it once again very quickly. All right, guys. So the main idea. Okay, I'll just very quickly go to this. See the process that we're implementing right now. Okay, the retrieving, the augmentation, and generating some kind of stuff out of it. Okay, that's what is called RAG. But I'll just extend everything from again a very quick summary. So what we have done, I am having this kind of PDF. Okay, I can have multiple PDFs. Right now, I'm having only one. Now I am creating this kind of a document from this PDF. Okay. Then I'm splitting this PDF into multiple different chunks. These chunks are nothing but the text data. If, for example, let's say in this page I'm having this. Let's say this is divided into first chunk, and the total count of this characters will be the length of that particular chunk. Then in the second part, this much amount of part is stored. Then in the second chunk, third chunk, this much amount of part is stored, right? So depending on the specific chunk size that we have specified, it will split according to that. Okay. So what we have done, we have taken this PDF, split it into multiple text data, which are again called the documents. Then we have transformed that text data. We have done some kind of transformation, right? And this transformation is a thing called augmentation. Okay, augmentation is nothing but when we are taking a particular data and representing it in multiple different ways. Okay, so that's the reason why we also call it as an augment, like RAGA stands for augmentation, right? So we are transforming our data from one particular way to another particular way. That transformation is happening with the help of embedding models. Now, embedding models are again a model that has been trained by this kind of machine learning algorithms, deep learning algorithms. What it does, it takes the text from this kind of documents. It takes this text, convert it to a specific numerical data. For example, let's say the is given a value of 1. Okay, then n is given a value of 2. Basically, we don't take care into like this specific, but I'm just giving you an example so that you are able to understand that each and every word is given some kind of this thing, a number. Okay, and that number, based on how it's structured, okay, over here we are doing a character text splitter. Okay, so it's doing on each and every character that we are having. Okay, from character wise splitter, we have got this particular thing and convert it into a numerical embeddings. So the is having a specific meaning in a numerical terms. It is represented by specific set of numbers which will never change. Okay, any kind of different word is having a specific representation in numerical world based on how the embedding was implemented. Okay, so that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so now any kind of word, let's say that I have given low melting point as an example. So low melting point are having its own numerical representations over here. Okay, so if someone else is telling you that convert my low melting point in the same exact way that you have done the embedding over here, do the same type of embedding again. So isn't it obvious that my low melting point will again have that same exact meaning because I've used the same model? The one that I've used over here to convert this different chunks, and in the different chunks, one of the chunk is having this low melting point, right? So it used a specific technique, embedding model, right? It used a specific embedding model to convert it into a numeric data. So I'm using that same embedding, but I'm not changing it. I'm using that same exact one. Okay. So now if someone else, okay, if someone else is giving the same exact numerical representation, right, over here, so won't it be matched exactly in this vector database? What is this vector database? In this vector database, we are having this embedded vectors, which are nothing but the numerical representations of the text that we are having in different chunks. Okay, that's something that we are storing over here. It's not the only thing that we are having over here, but yeah, that's one of the thing. And I'm talking about it again and again because that's the thing that we require in the second part as well. Right? So everything is clear so far that what is stored in the vector database from this data source?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any doubts, Sajjan sir?
No.
Okay, you understood everything so far, right?
Yeah, understood so far.
Okay, great. All right. So in this, right now we are having all the kind of numerical representation from the documents, each and everything. For each and everything that you are seeing over here, we are having its numerical representation stored in the format of embeddings in this vector database. Okay. Now what's going to happen? How will we retrieve this information if someone is asking this, if someone is saying that give me the information about the low melting point or any kind of different kind of example? Okay, but let's say in a text low melting point is used. Okay, so over here already vector database is having the numerical representation that denotes the low melting point. So over here now, if we are, let's say I'm using a chat gpt, I'm asking something to the chat gpt. Okay, and now in the chat gpt again I'm writing some kind of a text. Now in that text, because I know that I'm dealing with this kind of a research paper, and I have to ask questions with respect to some kind of data that I know with respect to this paper. Okay, it could be as little as just knowing the name of the title, and based on this title only we can get a lot of information about this paper. And that's what I'll be showing you in the demonstration part. All right. But what is happening? This query is again in a text format. Now that text format is again getting converted into a numerical representation by using which method? The same exact method that was used over here. So the meaning of every word that was converted into a specific way will be the same. The semantics will be the same over here. The same meaning will be carried forward over here. Okay. So now let's say there is a bowl in front of you, okay, or a bag which you cannot see. There is a some kind of a red ball that is present over here. In this particular step, let's say we have put one red ball. Okay. Now what we are doing is over here from this query, you are again generating a red ball and putting it over here. Right. Now, if someone asks you to look into this particular bag and check which one are the similar ones. So obviously you will see that yes, these both are red, right? And let's say one ball was orange. So you will say that, yeah, orange is the second similar one to this red that we have passed, right? Someone could be like, a yellowish orange. It will say that that's the third most closest to the red ball, right? So all of these three balls, red, orange and yellowish orange, I'll be taking out from this particular vector database. Why? Because it matched the most with my query. Okay. Now, based on this query, so what is the main purpose? To get some kind of response on this query, right? So that's what is happening. We have passed the query. It retrieves the information that is required based on this query, only based on this query, nothing else. Okay. So from everything, all the information that we have given, we are just asking about this low melting point. So because it's already present in the vector database, it's matching this kind of documents in all the kind of chunks. Let's say low melting point has been used in a lot of other part as well, right? It's not just over here. It could be used anywhere in this whole thing, right? So depending on my exact query, right? My exact query cannot just be a low melting point, right? It could be a whole question. So based on that whole question, where across this whole PDF, my numerical representations are matching with its respective chunk. You remember we have created some 8, for example, we have taken 8 as an example. So out of this 8, which one is out of this 8 chunks, which chunks are most similar to the query that I'm passing in? I'll retrieve out some of them. Okay, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, right? But like, it depends on the specific use case that you're dealing with. Let's say, for example, out of 8, we took out top 3 similar ones. So what is this text? What are these 3 chunks having? These 3 chunks are having the data with respect to anything on low melting point with respect to some other things that I have mentioned in the question, right? So that's the kind of data that we are having over here. So it's obvious, right? I don't need any kind of extra chunks. The remaining 5 chunks, I don't even need to pass it to my large language model, right? It's of no use. I want to generate my answer with respect to only these 3 chunks, because I know the probability of my answer that will be lying in either of these 3 documents is high as compared to the remaining 5. So I'll choose this particular 3 documents and ask large language model to take that data. Is this vector database stuff clear, guys? Shavani?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Okay, no problem. So after this, the stuff is pretty much clear, right? What happens over here now? Based on this query, because we have generated this data, right? And now because its LLM is also having this particular data, this LLM is going to try to generate some kind of response. And our job is to get this response in a proper structured way, right? That's our main job. How are you going to do it? That's what I'm going to show you in the code implementation part. All right, guys. So yes, you don't need to implement this along with me. You just see what I'm doing. Okay. Later on, you can do this kind of implementation part on your own. But right now, just understand the process that I'm doing. All right. I divided this whole code implementation into multiple different steps. I guess there are 8 steps, 7, 8 steps. But yeah, I have divided everything into particular steps. Did anyone ask a question? Okay. All right. So first of all, there might be some kind of terminologies that you might hear it for the first time. Okay. So please feel free if you're not understanding specific things, especially for people who are new to Python, don't worry, it's okay. You are learning, you are over here to learn something, right? So if you're not understanding something, feel free to let me know, right? Because I might be using some kind of terms that might go above your head, okay, at times. So first of all, the step one is to uh, get the Python dependencies that is required for this notebook. So to create this kind of a chatbot, what are the kind of stuff that we need? All this kind of stuff is what we are having over here. We have brought all this kind of stuff over here, and these are called the dependencies that we'll be using of Python to create our whole project in terms of coding. That's the kind of stuff. Now, you might not have pre-installed this in your notebook or in your environment. So what you do is you simply use this pip install and the package name. Okay, you use pip install and the package name. It's going to install this kind of respective dependencies into your system. Okay, and I've given the example over here. If you're not really aware about this, you just uncomment this code. Okay, and simply run this particular cell. It will download all the respective things that is required, the main things that are required for this particular project. Now, depending on what all kind of things that you are having in the environment that you are working in, there might be some extra libraries, some extra dependencies that you might be asked to download it, okay, or install it. Basically, you just use pip install that specific command and it will install it for you. Okay, but these are the main ones that we'll be using. So let's talk about them as we go ahead in the code cell. So this is where I'm making this kind of imports. What is the meaning of import? We are trying to get something which other people have code, such that I don't have to code it from scratch. Some specific things that I'm trying to get. I don't have to write any kind of code from scratch. If someone already has done it for me, I'll take that particular part and implement it over here. And the way that we do it is with the help of this kind of import. Okay, so first of all, we are this .env. From this .env, we are importing load.env. So what's happening over here? Why do we need it? Okay. I told you, right? There is something very secretive that I cannot share with you guys. That's the OpenAI API key. Because of this API key, I will be able to have the access of this large language models of OpenAI. Okay. I'll be having access to this large language models with the help of this API key. If I'm not giving this API key, I won't be able to do this particular task. Okay, like in this particular way, the way that we are following. Okay, over here we need the large language model from the OpenAI. So therefore, from OpenAI, we are getting our API key, and now we don't really share this kind of API key with anyone. Okay. And obviously, let's say your friend is needing it and you trust your friend, maybe you share it with them. But for strangers whom you don't trust, you never share your API key. Okay, there could be a lot of things that could be done, illegal things that they can do with the artificial intelligence, and the whole blame can come on you. So make sure you are never sharing your API key with anyone. But I guess that's the same reason why I am not exposing my this OpenAI API key. Okay, and the way that I'm still using it after hiding it is with the help of this .env. Okay. What is the purpose of this .env? When I call this load.env, it automatically loads this OpenAI API key for me. Why? That's where the step 2 is going to come in handy. Okay, but for now, yeah, that's what the .env is for. The other two dependencies that we are using over here. Any doubts, guys?
Sorry, just one thing.
Yeah.
So this the chat GPTs, like the OpenAI is the key that you're talking about. It is a paid feature, right? To generate the key, or you can do it with the free account.
I'll show you exactly what we'll do in the second step.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah. All right. So what's going to happen is in the second over here, what we are importing, there is something which is called as langchain. Okay. See, langchain, llama index, and even the guidance that we are going to use are all the kind of frameworks through which we can develop this kind of chatbot. Okay. This kind of framework is developed by a lot of people who have contributed to the community, and because the code is publicly available, we are simply using their code and trying to create a chatbot. That's why this kind of process has become so easy. Okay. And even in the upcoming times, you will see that this process is getting even more simpler with time. Like, this is the in demand thing right now. People are doing a lot of research based on which they're continuously changing their way of coding that they've already stored in this. For example, let's say langchain in the text splitter, they have done a particular way of coding. After, let's say, if you are using this notebook after, let's say, 5 to 10 days, let's say they're currently doing this kind of changes. After 10 days, these things will be irrelevant, or maybe slightly irrelevant, but it won't work. It will throw you some kind of an error, right? Why? Because they're continuously doing some kind of research. They're trying to make their coding even better and better day by day. They keep on working on it day by day, right? So that's why this kind of coding, whenever you will be seeing, even with respect to YouTube, there will be a lot of things that if you're implementing after certain amount of months will give you a lot of errors. Okay, so that's one thing that you have to deal with over here, because if you are new to Python, if you are not good with checking the documents online of Python with respect to the, let's say, for example, langchain, if I'm using it, then you won't be able to rectify this kind of doubts by yourself. Okay, so you should have this kind of habit through which you can solve this kind of errors by going to the original documentation. Let's say langchain, inside it there is a text splitter. Now it's giving me an error that there is nothing like character text splitter. They have changed the name of this character text splitter to something else only. So what is that thing? Okay, so if you're not getting any kind of hints, then you go to the this particular GitHub repository, or even the official documentation if it's available, and try to see if there are any kind of changes that has been made. This is just one example, okay? But yes, that's what I really wanted to make one point over here, that maybe if you're using this particular notebook after, let's say, n amount of months, this might not work. But anyway, what we are doing over here is we are trying to
Rohan,
yeah
we are on time constraints actually, so we don't need to go into much details.
okay.
So don't cover the edge cases. Just stick to the code, I guess.
Okay, no problem. All right. So, anyways, what I'll do is in that case, I'll explain this whenever we are importing it. Okay, what is the use of that particular thing? It will make much more sense as well. All right. So, what I'll do is the second step. The second step is to create the OpenAI API key. Okay, OpenAI API key, and then load it to our particular environment. And how are you going to do it? How are you going to build this kind of thing? That's where you will have to click on this particular link. It will redirect you to this OpenAI API. You sign up if you haven't already. And then once you are done, you simply log in. Okay. You click on this API. You go to this personal dashboard. Then click on view API keys. And from here, you click on over here. We are having one that is already there. You click on this new create new secret key. Okay. Once you click on this, it will generate an API key for you. Simply copy it. Once you copy it, that's the secretive key which you should never share with anyone. Okay. Once you have copied it, what you should do after that? Okay. You come to your project folder. In the project folder, create an empty file. Create an empty file. In that empty file, write this particular thing, the one that I have written over here. Open, everything is in caps lock. It's OpenAI underscore API underscore key. And no spaces in between of this equal to, don't have any kind of space, just write equal to and paste your key as it is. Okay, paste your key as it is. If you are not following this particular syntax, then it might give you an error. But yeah, that's how you will be loading this kind of API key to your system. Okay, how are you loading it? With the help of this .env. Right? So now in that .env file, we have loaded our API key with respect to OpenAI. Right? And the question, Fuzel, that you had asked with respect to if it's free or not, when you are making a new account in your OpenAI, then you get some free access, okay, for the initial few days, for initial few months. So yeah, that's how you can get the free access, or else you will have to pay for it. All right, if the access is over. So yeah, that's how it basically works. So now what now what I am doing after this is that I am loading this API key, because that's the only thing that is present in my .env. So I'm loading that thing over here. Okay, I have not run this code, so I'll just run this. and then I'll be running this. So now it has loaded the API key into my environment. Okay, now I don't need to worry. Now my this notebook is having access to this particular API key, and now I will be having access to my LLM. Right? How am I getting it? From the guidance, LLMs, OpenAI. Okay, with the help of guidance, I'm going to LLMs and OpenAI, and I'm getting this large language model called GPT 3.5 Turbo. This is exactly what we are using in the ChatGPT's free access. Okay, so that's the one that I'm using over here, and this is going to be useful for our chat purpose. Okay, so that's why I'm storing it is in the format of LLM chat creation. CC stands for chat creation. Right? So that's where I'm getting the access to the large language model that we have talked about over here. Okay, but now before we come to this step, we have to follow this whole process. Now this whole process is something that's what I'm going to show you in the format of coding. All right. Now, because of the time constraint, I might have to hurry up a little bit, but yeah, let's see how much I can explain it. All right. So our main task is to create this kind of a, this have to go through all of this process. Now, how this process is going to be done? Loading, then breaking it into chunks, and then embedding it and storing it into the vector database. How are you going to do that? Let's see that. First of all, I'm giving path to the data source. That is this particular folder that I'm having over here. Right? Then I'm using something called as directory loader. Okay, this directory loader is coming from this particular code. Okay, from langchain, I'm getting this directory loader, and this loader is going to be helpful in order to load my PDF data. Okay, that's why I use this directory loader. You can use different loaders. It's not a big of problem, but I have used this specific one to load my data. In this data, it's nothing but the directory that I'm passing. Okay, the directory name is research_papers. And then I'm creating this loader object with respect to that particular thing. And then I'm using this .load method to actually load this particular data to this documents. Okay. So what is this document saving? Let's check it. This is the first step that I've done, the loading part. Okay. After this loading, I'm going to do the chunking part. Okay. So let's see how our documents are looking like. Because there is only one PDF, right? We are getting only one document, right? Now, if you can see, this document is present within the list. So to get an access to this document, I have to use this zero indexing. Okay, because that's the first thing that we are having inside the list. And we index it with the help of zero. And let's see how it looks like. What is the type of it? I'm trying to visualize the type of it. Okay, what is the type of the document? So as you can see that it's a langchain.schema.document. Okay, so it's basically coming from the langchain as we have used langchain to load it. Okay, so that's what I really wanted to show over here. After that, that's where we are doing the splitting part. That's where we are going to get the chunks out of this, the overall document. How are we going to do this? I am saying that get me as many chunks as possible, but the chunk size, the maximum chunk size should be 1500. Okay? 1500 should be my chunk size. All the splits that I'm getting of the chunks, the maximum characters should not exceed than 1500. Okay. Now, what is this chunk overlap? This chunk overlap is nothing but in each and every document, there will be some kind of overlaps that we will be experiencing. What is the need of this? The need of this is nothing but to have a consistency that is flowing through each and every of your chunks that you are creating. Okay, that you are having the same kind of information the previous chunk, and it's starting from that same kind of information from which the previous thing ended. So this kind of flow, this kind of consistency is maintained, right? And we are saying that used 200 characters for this particular overlap, right? And based on this, we are now splitting this particular thing. We are not actually splitting it over here. We are still creating an object called splitter. Okay. And from this object that we have created, we are passing this split documents, which now takes the original document and now split it into different chunks with this particular code. Okay. And let's see how it looks like. As you can see, this many documents have been created, right? This many chunks have been created. Okay. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we have done, right? After this, what we have done over here, this is a bit, it would be a bit advanced thing for us to understand. So what I'll do is, first of all, see, pay attention over here. Okay. In this document, we are having something called as page content, right? This page content is nothing but all the kind of data, all the kind of characters that we are having. It's mentioned over here for me. See, that's how it's mentioned. So we can get access to this chunk data with the help of this documents page content. Okay. And that's what we're actually trying to get access to. Why? Because remember, all the chunks are in the text data, and the text data needed to be converted into its numerical representations. So we need to have access to the data, right? That got splitted. So that's what I'm doing over here, basically. Okay. That's what I am doing in the next step. Okay. This is a bit advanced way of doing that thing, but I can do it. I can explain it with the help of this particular for loop. Okay. So what I'm doing over here, I am creating two empty lists. One to store the ID with respect to the document that I'll be generating. So I can say that this is of ID 1, this is document 1, this is document 2, this is document 3. Like that, I'll be generating my unique IDs, document 1, document 2, document 3. And in this docs list, I'll be having its respective page content. Okay, I'll be having its respective page content. All right. So what really happens over here? What's really happening over here? In this for loop, with the help of this enumerate function, we are passing this enumerate on this splitted. Right? So now, because we are passing enumerate, we are able to access each and every document either we can access it by two ways, either with the actual thing that it is having, either by its individual document, or else with the help of the indexing, or else with the help of indexing. Indexing is nothing but like, this is your index 0, this is your index 1, this is your index 2. So I can get access to the same thing in two different ways now. One with respect to the direct documents with the help of this for loop. It's simply saying that for out of each and everything that we are having, go on it one by one, one by one, one by one. Okay. And what are we trying to do? We are trying to store the respective page contents ID, first of all, into this unique IDs list. How are you doing it? By using a format string, and we are saying that doc, this doc is nothing but the doc 1, doc 2, doc 3. So the doc that we are having in the front, right? That doc plus int, like, and after that I'm passing the number, what kind of doc it should be. I want it to start from like, doc 1, doc 2, doc 3, doc 4. So that's why I've done ID plus 1, because the first index in Python is 0, right? So that's why this plus 1 was done over here. And after this, I'm also appending the respective page content of the document, right? From this splitted, I'm getting access to this page content by creating this doc. So I'm simply appending that doc over here. Actually, this document is giving me access to this document, okay? Not the page content. It's giving me access to this document. So how will I get the page content out of this document? I am simply going to do doc dot page content. Now, with respect to each and every doc, I am getting my respective page content. So yeah, that's how this particular thing is working. And now it's going to do for each and every chunk that is present in my data. And I'll be getting the final unique IDs and final documentation. Okay, I'm just commenting this code out, and I'm using the advanced way of doing this, but it's both of are working in the same way. It's just that in this particular way, instead of creating a list, we are creating a tuple. Okay, that's the only difference. As you can see, this bracket, it's a tuple, right? And these are all the kind of IDs that we have generated from doc 1 to doc 29. There are 29 documents, and the respective page content is over here again in the format of tuple, right? So now we are having access to the unique IDs and documents. Now you might be thinking that why are we even doing this step, right? I told you the embeddings. Embeddings is the reason why we are doing this particular step. The way that we're going to get these things done is with respect to ChromaDB. Now, what is ChromaDB? It's a vector database which requires these two inputs. At least these two inputs. These two inputs are the must ones. What are they? The documents, the every page content that you are passing, right? Because that's what you have to create into embeddings, right? So you are passing that documents, each and every document that you have stored over here in a tuple, you are now converting it into a list because it accepts the list of documents. Okay, so that's why I'm converting this tuple to list. And similarly for the IDs as well, it also expects the respective ID. For example, if I'm passing this page content, how will the vector database know with respect to which document I am accessing this page content, right? That's the reason we also need to give the ID associated with this document. Okay. So yes, that's what we are doing over here. Where is it? Yeah, over here. Okay. So all the unique IDs that we have generated, all the documentations are going inside this collection of ChromaDB that we have created. And over here, all this kind of embeddings and every kind of process is actually happening. All right. Now, what we are doing after this? What are we doing after this? If I can show you the collection directly over here, it's in the format of like, name is equal to sample collection, but that is not giving us any much information. So I'll just delete it. Now what is happening? The embeddings have been created. Right? This particular step has been done. Now we just have to get the these things done from this vector database. I have to match the query that user is giving me to this vector database, right? In this particular, the step that we have done so far is what we have stored the information in our vector database. Okay. Now we need a query from user and try to match which of this kind of all the things that we have generated inside the vector DB is matching with this query. Now that step is done with respect to this particular function over here. I have created this function called as knowledge base. This knowledge base is basically going to be useful for your large language model to retrieve specific information to your this particular PDF, right? So what is this function basically doing? In this function, what we are doing is we are taking the query of the user. It can ask any kind of question. Okay. For example, over here I've taken an example as, can you list all the specimens used for measurement of optical reflectance? Can you list all the specimens? That should be the correct one, right? So yeah, that's the query that I'm giving. How do I know this kind of thing? Because I've gone through a very little bit of information to demonstrate it over here. Okay, but just to give you a demonstration, okay, I have used this particular question. It could be anything. It could be with respect to like, you can also ask what is the title of this particular paper on this. You can say that LMPMS. It will give you the respective output. Okay, but right now I have taken this particular example so that it makes a much more sense to you. That from the research paper, I have gone through this research paper, and there was something specifically written about this particular part. And I want my LLM to answer it correctly. Based on this external model that we have fed to LLM, I want it now to perform it in a well way. So what we are doing over here is we are taking the query from the user. Now, in this particular step, we are getting the retrieval part. We are getting the top 3 results. Okay. Out of the 29 or 28 chunks that we have created, the top 3 chunks that are matching with this particular query is been actually stored into this particular result. So in this result, there are 3 different page content, and that page content is with respect to the one with which this query matched the most. Okay, I've also printed this result so that you will be able to see when I run this particular thing. But now understand, this result is in the format of a list. Okay, it's in the format of the list where we are having 3 different contents, one from chunk 1, one from chunk 2, one from chunk 3. Now what's going to happen? We need to combine them together, and the way we combine them together to remove this kind of comma and just create a one final text. where we're combining all these three information from three different chunks into one final chunk. Okay, how are we doing it? With the help of this join function. Well, if we implement this join function on this list, what it does, it basically combines the inner elements of the list, and the way that we are joining it is with the help of a new line character. So after every new line, it will be joining this. Okay, so my first data was like this. Let's say with these two strings, then with these two strings, how will I connect them? I will connect them with a new line. There will be a new line between these two things. So that's what I'm doing over here. Okay. And then I'm getting that final one output, that final one generated text over here as an output. Okay, so that's the knowledge base. All the data that Chat GPT, or not Chat GPT, but the GPT 3.5 Turbo should understand. Right? So that's what this particular function is going to do. And here is the example how it works. Once I've passed this particular data, you can see it gave me three different documents, document 24, 26, and 22. And the respective documents with respect to that ID has been generated over here. It has been generated over here, right? So now what's going to happen is, I'm going to do something specific with this knowledge. What am I going to do? I'll explain that to you in a while. Before that, what I'll do is I'll just simply comment this out so that it's not getting printed again and again. Okay. Now see, we have done almost all the steps, right? We have almost completed everything to create a chatbot. We are till this particular step. Now the only thing is to generate the response from this data. LLM is going to get the access of this particular thing. Okay, so we have done all this kind of steps starting from this till vector base. Then from the vector base, if user is giving a query, it's giving the top three results. We are over here, right? Now we have to understand how we can pass this data to LLM, and how can this LLM generate a response. That's the final step, guys. There's nothing much things that we are going to do after this, but yeah, just hold on a while. I know I'm running out of the time, but yeah, let's see very quickly. So see, now what we are doing over here is, I'm again defining a function called as chatbot. I'm manually creating this function called chatbot. It takes in two different things. One is the input from the user, whatever is the question that a user is having, and the chat loop. This chat loop is something where we are doing the prompt engineering. Okay, what is this prompt engineering? We are telling LLM, we are guiding LLM to give output in a specific manner by using multiple different tags. Now, all these kind of different tags has some different meanings. I'll explain it to you as we go ahead. All right. So first of all, when user is giving some kind of input, we don't have any kind of chat loop by default. So if chat loop by default is none, if there is no chat loop, that is the initial stage, then you create this kind of a chat loop. What is this chat loop showing? We are using that guidance. Okay, again we have imported this guidance in the upcoming, like above cells, and from this guidance we are giving this kind of template. Now what is this template saying? I am telling my LLM, I am guiding my LLM that you are a helpful research assistant that answers any questions related to astronomy research papers. Okay, that's the kind of context that I'm giving to my LLM. Okay, that you are this particular thing. Okay. After this, what's happening? User is giving the query, whatever is the question that it wants to ask. It's giving us to an as an input to the guidance. What's happening after that? We are again giving some kind of information. If user query is very generic, like greetings or not at all scientific, then what you need to do is, you don't need to use the knowledge that you have created over here. Okay. This knowledge is actually the output that we'll be getting over here, right? The final combined document, the top three results which are combined together. That's the thing over here, right? That's the thing over here. In this knowledge, the combined results of the three documents are stored over here, correct? So from this knowledge, you don't have to take any kind of response. You have to respond it on your own. From the data that you have been trained on by these tech giants, you just reply to your user without using this particular knowledge, basically. All right. And that's that. I'm giving this kind of guidance over here. Right? After that, what I'm doing is whatever is the user text, I'm telling that based on the text that we have got for that particular text, because we are in a conversational chat. Okay, so this basically means that depending on what kind of conversation we are on, use that particular text. Okay, and what I'm saying now, use this context knowledge below to frame your answer very intelligently, and don't print any output that may be unnecessary and not useful for the question. The reason that I have written this kind of statement is because once I was printing these outputs, I was getting some results that I was not really interested into. So I put this particular line over here, that if the the question by the user is not very generic, at that time you use the context knowledge, and in this context knowledge you have to build your answer, you have to frame your answer in a way that it's not giving us any unnecessary information. Like, this is a very, very plain way of creating a prompt. Okay, this is not the advanced level of prompt, but that's what prompt engineers do. Okay, they focus on this kind of things, how they can create a better prompts such that they're guiding LLMs to give the output that they desire, basically. All right. So yeah, all this kind of tags that you are seeing is with respect to, there are some specific features with respect to that. User basically means the user that we are getting, the inputs from the user that we are getting. Then system is what we are giving the context. This Janage is basically responsible to create the whole loop with respect to everything that is stored between them. Okay, from this particular thing to this, everything between them is going to go in a loop. It will be continuously going into a loop because it's a conversational AI, right? So that's the purpose of this Janage, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. All right. Now what we are doing is, we are first of all generating a chat loop. We are generating this particular chat loop. What are we doing? We are passing the user text is equal to the input that user has given, and from the knowledge, this knowledge, again, as I mentioned, this is the combination of these three chunks together. That's the knowledge over here, right? So that's the chat loop that we have created over here and stored it into this chat loop. All right. Now what's going to happen over here? I'm finally returning the outputs of this conversation. Okay. I'm returning the outputs of the conversation. The reason that I've implemented this -2 in response, you will understand it in a while. So first of all, ran this function completely, and now I'm running this particular file. Okay. So now see what's happening. It's saying that the response that this the GPT 3.5 Turbo has given to us with respect to that is, see, who are the authors of this paper on low melting point metal mirrors for the space telescope, right? I've given the title of the paper. You just look at the names of the researchers. It's this particular names. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce them, but these are the kind of names, and you will see that the exact names will be printed over here. That the authors of this paper on this name are this, right? Are this. Now, if you want, you can give a prompt in a way that this kind of information is hidden to the user. They don't see this kind of information. They simply see the output of these names. That's it. That requires prompt engineering. That requires to structure this prompt in that specific way. Right? But I won't go into that particular detail. But yeah, that's what is happening. But now, how are we exactly retrieving this particular response? That's what I'm trying to show over here. So in this chat loop, I have asked only one question, right? Then who is what, and I've got the specific response, right? Now, if you check over here in this conversation, if I do this conversation of -2, what it gives me? It gives me this inner part. I could have also extracted this with the help of 0. It's giving me the same thing, right? I can use the negative indexing or the positive indexing. It's up to me. So -2 is also giving me this particular part, the user text as well as the response. Okay. Now, because I want the response from the LLM, I am also getting the output in the format of response. So that's what this particular line means. Okay. From the chat loop conversation, give me the first block where it is storing the information with respect to the user query, as well as what response your LM is generating. Right. So that response is what I'm tracking out of it. So yeah, that's the reason why this particular line was made. And at the same time, I'm also returning the chat loop. Right? So that's the kind of stuff that I've done. Now see, you have already created your whole this kind of thing. Okay, you have created a conversational AI. Now you can ask any kind of questions to it, and it will be able to answer it to you. Okay. For example, I have asked it to write a summary of the abstract of this paper. If I run this, you can read this abstract later on, and just try to see how good it is able to give the answer. You can read this whole thing at your own time, and all the information that you are seeing over here will be summarized in a specific way with respect to the abstract that is written over here. Okay, so depending on what kind of queries that users wants, depending on that, LLM is able to generate this kind of output by using this specific guidance that we have provided it to it. Okay, if this guidance is not provided in this particular way, we might get some different kind of results. Okay, the moment you change some details over here, it will give you the output in a different format. All right, so yeah, that's what we have done. After that, this particular code is like just the implementation of how we can continuously run this kind of questions in loop. So every code is just the same. It's just that I've created a while loop that will keep on running until user asks it to quit it. Okay, you can say that type quit to exit. So I'm not going to write exit. I'll just say, let's say hi. Hi, how can I assist you today? See, it is giving me this kind of how I can assist you today because I have told this chat GPT, I mean this GPT version or the large language model, that if the information is generic, if it's generic and not astronomical or scientific, then you respond to it normally like you would do it. Okay, that's why it gave me this kind of thing. You will see why am I specifying on this, why am I focusing more on this a bit while. But after this, let's say I'm creating one more question. Let's say again I'm writing what are the names of the authors of this paper on low melting point metal mirrors for space telescope. I don't need to write a lot of this thing, but yeah, it would be better if I complete this. Let's see what kind of output it generates. See, response, it's saying that the authors of this paper on this are the same guys that we had seen earlier, right? So it's just we are now building the conversation with the help of the for loop, I mean the while loop. If I type quit, it will just terminate the whole thing, basically, right? So yeah, that's it. Guys, you have now learned one technique with the help of guidance, how you can create a chatbot, how you can develop a chatbot for yourself, right? There is one more technique that I would like to show you that with just only this much amount of code, it does everything. This is with respect to Llama index. Okay, it's not that we cannot pass in a specific amount of prompt, but how a different way of creating the same kind of stuff. That's what I'm trying to show. Okay, internally it's using some kind of prompts through which we'll be getting some kind of outputs, but you will see it. So in the first step, we are loading the data. In the second step, we are storing it into the vector database. From the vector database, we are passing the query. From the query, we are generating it out. Okay, we are generating the outputs that we want, the response that we want from the LLM. So only by using this 5-6 lines of code, we will be able to do all the stuff that we have seen over here. Right? Everything that we have done, everything over here is compared to this particular part. It's just the 6 lines of code. Loading, then creating this vector index. This is nothing but the the rankings, right? The rankings that we are creating over here. Then we are creating this kind of a query engine, which is nothing but the conversational AI that we'll be having. We are passing the query to that particular engine that we have created, the chat engine or the query engine, we also call it. And then we are passing this kind of inputs, I mean the query from the user. Okay, let me just change this to high. Let me just quickly change this to high. Let's see what kind of output it gets. Okay, it's giving me the same kind of outputs for some reason, which it should not be actually. Okay, because maybe some kind of code that I might have rewritten, this is the kind of thing. But what will happen if I just restart and run this? It will give me that I am not having enough information to answer with specific to that kind of thing. Okay, that's the kind of output that you will receive. If not, it basically means that this, whenever we are passing this query, the way the prompt engineering is done is working in a very similar way that what we have created over here. Okay, during the implementation time when I was doing it, it was giving me the outputs like, I'm not having information of how to reply to you basically. All right, that's the way that was saying. Maybe if you try to restart this kernel and then you try to do it, maybe it will work at that time. Okay, but if it's not working, it basically means that this is also having some kind of prompt that is tackling this kind of stuff. All right. Now let's say I'm giving this kind of some kind of a query which says that what are the conclusions from a specific part of the paper. Okay, you take any specific part of the paper. I have taken this particular term. Okay, I've given this thing as an input that give me the conclusion from this particular table. Okay, then I've asked that particular thing and it's giving me the output over here. And I've cross-checked it, it was giving me the correct result. You can play around with this and see that all the kind of values of PB, BI, SN, GA, all of these values have been given over here. 0.072, 0.049, everything has been given over here. 0.072, 0.049, right? So yeah, that's the kind of conclusions that it's able to give us. And yeah, we are able to create this kind of thing with the help of Llama Index as well. Okay. Yes, guys. So there are two different methods that we have used to do the same kind of stuff. However, I really wanted to show you the difference between the prompts that we are passing in. However, I was not able to do it as of now. Okay, but yeah, you can try it by yourself and see what happens if you are restarting this particular notebook and then giving your hi or hey or something like that. Okay, maybe it won't be able to recognize it. You can try it. Okay. Let me try this one more time by typing hey. Let's see what happens. Let's see. See, I am sorry, but I cannot provide a meaningful response to the query hey based on C. So it means that the prompt engineering done over here needs to be a bit more refined as compared to what it is right now. Right. So that's the power of prompt engineering, how you structure your prompts such that it works in all the kind of use cases. Right. That's exactly what I wanted to show you. All right, guys. So yeah, that's the reason I've also created the Llama index for you so that I can show you this kind of difference. And yes, that's what I was trying to show. Okay. Now coming on to the final conclusions and what next you can do. I'll just take very quick 5 minutes of you guys. I thought this whole workshop is going to go till 9 o'clock, but I guess it's still 8:30. So, but anyway, so conclusions and what next. First of all, those who are still present in this call, okay, I'll congratulate each and every one of you because now you are having two different frameworks in your mind to create your own chat bot. Okay. Now you can ask any kind of questions to it. It will be able to answer it to you. Okay. Once you have this access to this notebook, you try to ask different kind of things. You try to generate different kind of prompts. See how better outputs you are able to generate. Right. So this kind of things you have learned in this particular workshop. Right. Now this is still a very high level of kind of implementation. If you go in detail and change the prompts very neatly, you can generate the outputs you can mold it the way you want, like a butter. Okay, but that skill is really very difficult. It comes only with practice, right? That's what is called prompt engineering basically, right? So if any one of you is interested to learn this kind of skills in detail, okay, from scratch till the level of the production where I was talking about initially some kind of applications that we can build, right? Any kind of applications with respect to this, if we are able to build it, even if let's say not to that level that mass people can use across the world, at least few people, your friends, maybe they can use it, you can use it for your own work, it will still be good, right? So if you're interested to learn everything from scratch, okay, from zero level, go through slowly build your base, Okay, go through each and everything that we have implemented. Okay, how this simple directory reader is working, how this vector store index is working with respect to the guidance, any kind of stuff that we implement. What is the backend thing that's working? How it's actually working? What's the math going on? That's where the whole fun is. If you understand all of these things, you will enjoy coding all of this kind of stuff that I have shown you right now. Right now, what you are doing is someone else has coded it, and you are simply pasting it over here and doing it in your own way. Okay, again, that's good. If that's something that you are happy with, that's good. But if you are someone who wants to learn this kind of things from scratch till that level of production, then what I want you all to do is you go to this Google form. You will have this access. Once you have this access to this particular notebook, you go to this Google form. What you do, you give your email ID, your full name, all this kind of information. Okay, and we have also given a very specific thing that we are trying this time. We really want to see that to get this kind of skills, okay, to back this kind of skills, how much amount of money can you invest on yourself? That's what we are trying to see over here. Okay, so choose this option very carefully, depending, I told you, right, what the kind of skills we are going to generate in this kind of training program from scratch till that particular level, right? So what kind of, according to you, what do you think would be a price that's worth spending on yourself and mastering this kind of skills? Okay, and lastly, you can give any kind of feedbacks with respect to how was your experience. A little bit bad experience I would share it from my side is the lack of time, right? If we had a more time, I could have talked much more about it, right? But anyway, that's one thing that's obviously you can mention it over here. But anything that you would like to share with respect to how was this workshop or anything other that you would like to mention, you can leave it over here. Okay, don't forget to submit this form. Even if you're not really willing to choose any of these options or not even willing to take part over here, but at least give some kind of feedback, right? So this kind of form, I guess what I'll do is uh, give access to this form on that particular WhatsApp group itself, or else let me do one thing. I'll just copy this form and share the link right over here in the chat. You can access it. All right, and do it at your own time, but I'm just sharing it right away so that you're having direct access. You don't have to wait for this. Okay, let's see, where is the chat? All right, guys. Over here, I have mentioned this particular form. You can use this particular thing. Go ahead, give us your feedbacks. Give us, if you're interested, mention about what kind of fees would you be able to spend on this and everything with respect to that. Okay, guys. And now, lastly, one more thing that I would like to add on top of this very quickly. Okay, is with respect to something really very important for the people over here who are really very new to Python. It's with respect to them only. Okay, all the people over here who have already taken part in the astronomical data science, you are like, you can just leave this particular call, or maybe you can wait till the end so that we can have some kind of question answers if you're having. But for the people who are not really well versed with Python and they want to improve themselves in Python, and not just Python, but also bag in some different skills, then I am having something for you over here. Okay, so currently, as I told you, there is a course which is launched that has already started. Actually, I'll just show that to you very quickly. Over here in this particular training program, this particular September batch, this is currently going on. What are the things that we are providing over here? We are having 2 weeks of Python. Okay, it's covering everything from scratch till the level that is required for this training program. Then 2 weeks we are spending on image processing, how astronomical image processing is done. We are focusing 2 weeks with respect to that. And over here we are also going to perform analysis on the black hole image that we have got. But yeah, all these kind of things are there. Apart from that, we are also covering machine learning and deep learning techniques. And yeah, that's what we are covering over here. So the first week has, however, already started. We have started with the very basics of orientation, introduction to astronomy and all that kind of stuff. Recordings to all of these things we keep on uploading to our Slack channel. But yeah, you will be getting access to the recordings if you require. But everything is going to start from now. So any one of you over here who are interested to learn this kind of skills, what you should do is You sign in over here. If you're not having an account, first of all, create it. Okay, once you sign in, what you're going to do is, I am going to give you a coupon code through which you will be getting 40% off on this particular thing. Currently, it's about 5,000, just because the people who have stayed till now. Okay, how many people are there? Let me check. There are 23. At the start, it was about 50ish, right? Almost half of the people have gone. So because you have stayed till now, and if you're interested to learn this kind of things, okay, it's not that you have to do it. If you're interested to learn this kind of things, I'm going to give you a coupon code through which you will be getting this whole course about, like, about 300, 3,000 something. All right. So what you have to do is, for that, you click on enroll now. You come to this coupon code and type LLMD40, and then click on apply. And then now you can see that the price has been reduced to about 3,000, right? So this is only for those who have stayed till now. Like, if we were not really planning to do this, but yeah, because you have stayed till here, we are planning to, like, give away this at 40%. All right, guys. So yeah, that's it from my side. If you are someone who is willing to learn Python, astronomical image processing, machine learning, everything from scratch, okay, everything from a scratch till a particular level that is required in that particular training program, you can get the access of the whole thing, like, what are the things that we provide and everything over here. Okay, everything has been mentioned over here. You can go through this. All right, the coupon code. Okay, the coupon code has been mentioned over here. It's LLMD40, LLMD40, and it will be valid till, like, there is a validity, right? We don't want everyone to use it every time. So the validity of this particular coupon code is 19th September till 11:59. Okay, you can use this particular code till that time. All right, guys. I know it was a bit hectic at the end. Some of the things, again, might not have made sense in terms of coding part, but I hope the overall process, the process of how chatbots are created, are crystal clear in your mind. Okay, the implementation part obviously depends on, like, how much amount of Python you know it. But yeah, because of the lack of time, we cannot go in depth.